The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 years, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Mike Jarmusch, Muzzman from Thunder Funder.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me, Thomas.
Ben Ark from LN Bits.
Evening all.
Josh Shigala from the Standard.io.
Sup, gents?
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. Issue one. Senate passes cryptocurrency and stablecoin rules bill, according to the New York Times, which you can only read in reader mode. The Senate has passed the bill, and now it's on its way back to the House, where they hope it will pass and the president will sign it. The bill, known as the Genius Act, was supported by bipartisanship as 18 Democrats or so passed over and supported the bill. The bill mainly supports stable coins and a regulatory framework for stable coins. Mike Jarmusch, what do you think about the new Stablecoin Act, which is all that we've ever wanted and everything we've dreamed of?
Yes, USDC, Satoshi's Real Vision. That's what that is. We're seeing it play out live, real time. It's kind of interesting when you look at who's against something, because it kind of gives you a good idea about it. And the fact that like Elizabeth Warren is vehemently against it makes you wonder. But, you know, it hasn't passed yet, but they expect that it will. And, you know, what are they saying about this becoming the, you know, the real way that the dollar is going to, you know, regain its status? I mean, that's pretty much what it comes down to, is that this is the loophole in the way that they're going to push it in there. And, you know, I don't know. I've never been really much of a stablecoin person. I don't even know if I've really ever had too many stable coins. If I have, it was maybe less than $1,000 for about 10 minutes. But, you know, I guess it's exciting for the industry. I guess it's exciting for everything Bitcoin, but it's just ironic that it's genius, right? Because the real Genius Act would have Bitcoin in it for sure.
Well, and that's the thing I always feel about this too. I saw Tether come out. I saw these other stables come out, and I say, oh, great. You can sell Bitcoin from your portfolio, hold it in something that matches up to the dollar. Why would I want that? That's not what I got in this for. That's not what Satoshi's about. But remember that the market has spoken, and Tether made like billions and billions of dollars. So it doesn't matter what I think. People clearly want stable coins. Apparently they want them regulated. There's a chance that this goes through. Of course, the House version is different than the Senate version. They are going to debate on that. I thought it was neat to see the split in the Dems. I'm with the minor group, but then again, I'm so uncertain about stablecoins. I don't think that was the revolution we asked for. I think, like Muzz is saying, this is a way for the USD and the old system to hang on, like being tethered to the USD is such a good thing. I think they'll look back and they'll say, what? I was holding a stablecoin. Bitcoin goes up this much, and you have me in stable Bitcoin? Ben Ark, what do you think about the bill passing the Senate? Perhaps a real law, a full payoff for the Bitcoiners or the stable coiners, whoever they are.
Yeah, we got a little bit of time to go, haven't we? Because it's just they just got the bill past the Senate, and then they actually have to go through the process of trying to make it into a law. And then in that process, it may change. But as I understand it, it had bipartisan approval, and there were some Democrats who crossed the floor to support it. So what's interesting is I think we've transcended that period where we were worried that, you know, Bitcoin would be regulated out of existence, and the regulators would come down harshly on it. I think we're kind of beyond that. You know, it was a few years ago now when I can't remember what his name was, but the guy said that Bitcoin was too big to regulate. And I think it's true, and they understand that, and they've got to embrace it. And it's a huge industry. And look at Trump; it was the biggest donor of his whole campaign was the Bitcoin industry. But it's interesting how it transcends parties, which I think is important, because you have a lot of people on the right, and you know, you have Trump and his lot who are pushing Bitcoin and the quote unquote crypto industry in the US, and then you have Farage on our side of the pond who's also pushing for lighter regulation, or just clearer regulation when it comes to cryptocurrencies. So it's nice to see the Democrats getting involved as well. And then what we don't want is for, if it switches from Republican to Democrat, that we lose all that traction which we had when it comes to fair regulations. Now, I understand that this bill is mostly regarding stable coins, but and I think that makes perfect sense for the US. Like, why, when there's all this talk about CBDCs and building your own CBDC and a sort of digitally native currency which everyone's going to use, the reality is like a large portion of the world already use Tether and find it very useful, and lots of unbanked folks use Tether. The sorts of people who traditionally the US would have wanted to get printed dollars in their hands, they use Tether. And every time we try and go into some of these unbanked regions and get them to use Bitcoin, the price instability is too much for them, so they end up just using Tether. So all in all, a good thing. See whether it goes through. There was part of me, the conspiratorial part of me, where I was like, the timing was interesting, because obviously any fairer crypto regulation for is probably a good thing for Donald Trump regarding like the Trump coin and the meme coin. And it was almost like, crazy Iran, war, bombs, let's get this bill through, come on. So there was part of me which thought the timing was kind of interesting, because politicians, they do that when there's something distracting people, they'll try and push something else through. So I wondered whether that might be connected, but yeah, it's it's good for the industry having clear regulations, and actually good for people who, I work in Bitcoin payments, and we need stability for unbanked folks, so we need some more R&D in that area.
If you look at the real losers of this thing, and you can see it reflected in Visa and MasterCard stock, basically since the Circle IPO, I mean, they've both just cratered. Visa and MasterCard stock have just absolutely nosedived. And, if you sell things online, or if you accept credit cards for whatever that is, right, whether it's your, your local cafe, your pub, or online, they're basically the mafia. They're taking what, 3.5%, sometimes a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. But whatever you're using for your credit card processing, I mean, it's an ultimate scam. And using stable coins puts that at what, like effectively zero. I think Stripe is maybe charging 1%. Right, instead of the 3.5%. So the retailers who are actually going to be accepting it, whatever they're doing with it, I mean, they're kind of the winners here. And the legacy sort of payment, the plastic card issuers, they're kind of the real losers.
So Bitcoin gets to mess with finance and take over commerce, just not the way we thought it was. It's through stable coins, it through other things, not Bitcoin directly. Go ahead, Ben.
Well, there was, because you obviously have all this treasury stuff which is happening at the moment, and the strategy type companies, and then like things like Firefish with the loans, collateralized loans when it comes to Bitcoin. And there was part of me which was thinking that perhaps if you wanted to accept fiat, or take fiat, sorry, but then accept Bitcoin, so then you get Bitcoin, you could have a marketplace of collateralized loans where you effectively get a micro loan, which would mean that actually instead of charging 1%, you could reward 1% to the merchant for accepting the fiat payment, because you're then going to use that to fund a collateralized Bitcoin loan, and do like a tiny little strategy. But yeah, so who knows in this crazy new world of Bitcoin and fiat existing in the same echo chamber.
And yet still, for an advertisement for Porkfest, I saw they were taking Yum Yum coin and Flubos, some kind of random things, and it still goes on. This altcoin, that coin, they corner the market, get a couple of merchants, and say they're number one. As Ben said, Trump is supporting this coin. He's pressing the House to pass it at the incredible crypto bill with no delays, no add-ons. As Ben said, 18 Democrats did join most Republicans to pass this bill. However, there was pushback because of Trump, because of his Trump coin and his Liberty Financial Exchange. Democrats will likely, when they come back against it, it'll be because of that corruption that they'll call out crypto. Josh Shigala, what do you think about the Senate passing the stablecoin bill and stablecoins generally?
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I started the standard was basically to build better stablecoins that were backed by Bitcoin. And backed by these volatile assets without giving up your private keys. And it came because I kept on going to these conferences and people, I'm so used to being in Bitcoin, and all these people are like, oh yeah, I'll sell you that. Have you got Tether? Oh, what the fuck, Tether? What are you? So many times people say Tether. This is just awful. We've gone a full 360 from we live in fractional reserve land to yay, Satoshi invented, bearer-based assets that can't be printed out of thin air. Well, can be, but there's a finite amount. And to yay, let's hold these. And trust me, I've got the money in the bank. Here's a certificate, full circle. So I do think that they're super useful. On the positive side, they help people understand public-private key cryptography rather than username password, which is pretty good in a way, right? The bad thing is that these regulations force AML and CTF, rulings onto these companies, and they have these clawbacks written to the smart contract, which makes them non-fungible, basically, which is not good for a currency. And so it'll be really interesting. In a way, though, I applaud the US for doing this because they have a natural head start above anybody else. We tried launching the standard with a Euro stablecoin, totally failed. No one had any appetite for it. The US has a natural head start in the crypto industry because everybody calculates everything. You go to any country, they've got their portfolio app on their phone set to US dollars for Bitcoin. Everything is Bitcoin is worth this much. Oh, what, in pesos? No, in US dollars. And in Australian dollars? No, in US dollars. So it doesn't matter which country, it's always in US. So they've got this natural head start in that network effect, which is really, really important. And if they were to destroy that, it would go to something else. And so I think it's kind of clever to grab onto that as fast as possible and do something good with it. Now, some of this, the details in this genius bill. I love the genius bill. You could tell it's done by politicians. It's like your mum saying, "Wow, he's really good with computers. He's a genius. He's a genius. Oh, wow, they're really good at crypto. What do we call this genius bill?" Like, it's just so cringe. But anyway, I think it's interesting that they have, for instance, reserve requirements on these things, which is really important because if these stable coins become so massive that there's trillions of dollars, they're centralized. Circle's totally centralized. Same with Tether and all of these. They say they have so much in reserve, and we have to trust them. And this is exactly how fractional reserve banking started. So having some, and I don't know the insiders, the inside information on what does that mean, reserve requirements and proof of those reserve requirements, because in the financial industry, you can say we have this much in the bank, but the thing is the bank can be in fractional reserve legally. So what does it mean? How do you prove what assets you have backing all of these tokens that are flying around? And then what happens if there's a massive calamity in the crypto industry? Some smart contract gets hacked or something. Can they just claw all that back? And if that gets scattered, because it gets scattered very quickly, what happens then? Do they just freeze them? Oh, okay, but I bought this thing, doodad, and I've now got this stablecoin. Now it's been frozen. So now that becomes a bad type of money. So sorry to be rambling. There's so many ins and outs on this. So it's it's very, very interesting topic for me. I find it fascinating. But yeah, if you want a true stablecoin, check out the standard.io
This
because there you get to lock up Bitcoin, wrap Bitcoin anyway. Because they didn't, the op returns weren't good enough on Bitcoin for me to.
yeah, this is your field, isn't it? This is your topic of your primary, the thing you've been working on for the past X amount of years. So you're the authority in the room here.
Yeah.
Is Tether
Well,
still with Tether? Is
Yeah.
there anything sophisticated going on when it comes to because obviously you built the standard and it's a verifiable smart contract and it's all open source. You can see everything,
Yeah.
and you know that all the
They
money's
have
there.
very sophisticated piles of money. It's like
Yeah.
Smaug in The Hobbit.
But no, Tether. Yeah.
Dragon,
So
very
has
big dragon.
Josh has Tether like updated in the past few years to be more than just a database?
No,
to
so what Tether did is they started the whole thing really. Exchanges back in 2013, 14 found it very, very hard to have bank accounts because the whole narrative around crypto was Silk Road and headlines, shocking headlines, right? So banks just weren't willing to deal with them. It's one of the reasons we started Voltoro back in the day. So you deal with Bitcoin and physical gold instead. But Tether then came along and said, okay, you can't get bank accounts. Everyone wants to trade against USD. How about you just use a token? And this was after Ethereum had launched, obviously, because it was a token. I'm pretty sure. Or were they first on Counterparty?
It was pre Ethereum.
I think it was on
It was
Counterparty.
I think
wasn't it?
the
Yeah.
beginning of Tether, it was on the Mastercoin protocol, and they had some kind
Yeah,
of
that's
problem,
right.
and then they
Yeah,
had to
yeah,
move
yeah.
it to a different protocol. It was called OmniCoin, I think, for a while.
Omni. That's right. Yeah, yeah. That's right. So, and it was basically to help exchanges that couldn't get banked run their exchange. And the thing is that Tether made a massive bet, which could have gone so bad, but they made a bet that made them so insanely rich and over collateralized that it's not even funny. They took everybody's USD that was backing their stable coins. And when Bitcoin was at its low, when everyone was saying sell, 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 Bitcoin's, back in the Bitcoin's finished, it's over, down at like 10 grand or something, they went and took all the money and put it all in Bitcoin. Oh, maybe not all, but a lot of it. And it started going up. And they also had so much sway in it that they could print money and buy Bitcoin. So who knows if they actually kick-started that bull run. But after that, they've held so much Bitcoin, it's insane. So they're over collateralized at that stage. I'm not sure now anymore, but
Now, Josh, in the same way, do you think they could have ended up like Sam Bankman-Fried if the bet had gone the other direction? We would be talking about them like the way we talk about FTX, right?
Absolutely, and there would be a global hunt. But it was, they made a good bet and they managed to. Whether they had a manipulative finger on the scale at that time to drive the bull market back up is anybody's guess. But yeah, it was amazing that they are so over collateralized now and so wealthy. The thing with Tether is nobody really knows the structure still, which to me is so freaking amazing, phenomenal. It's so cypherpunk, even though this is a centralized thing. No one really understands how Tether's structured, where they sit, where they're domiciled, where they're legally structured. They have some legal breadcrumbs here and there, but it's very difficult. Circle, on the other hand, and Paxos, they're very well solid, regulated out of the US. So it's but yeah, the Tether story is really fascinating. I think it's a fascinating story.
It sounds like a movie to me, Josh. You have the kid comes in the room and he's like, we own this much of the market. If we put this money back in, not only will we corner the market, we'll drive the price up. Like it's the greatest bet ever. We could win or we could lose. Go ahead, Buzz. What else do you think about Tether?
Do you remember the controversy back in the day with that guy? What was his name? Bitfinex. you know, and he was like anonymous and his voice was like, you know, he did the whole thing. He was Bitfinex and he had this whole inside intel about it wasn't backed or whatever. That was like a big deal in
Yeah.
the day, you know, and then you
Yeah.
had New York Attorney General going after Tether, and I mean the price was crazy, you know, at that
Yeah.
point. But in a multiverse that we're living in here in this simulation, there has to be another scenario where, you know, I think Tether is the sixth or seventh largest holder of U.S. government debt. I'm not sure what it is, but it's around there. Like it's an astronomical number. So
Wow.
how would this be if they weren't holding and buying and one of the largest buyers now of government debt? Would this whole stablecoin renaissance, we're going to be the leader, yay, yay, hoorah, would that really be going on? Because there's definitely like an agenda there. You know, and honestly, like it's shocking to me that Tether can even be in the US, right? And you look at something like Speed Wallet, you know, you get Tether by default, you know, or, you know, Blockstream Green and Liquid and all these other things like, you know, Samson is pro Tether. You know, someone like Ray Youssef, I'm not an expert, but, you know, they claim that the global South needs stablecoins. Stablecoins are like the saving grace for all these other people that don't, you know, live in developed countries. So, you know, it's interesting to see how this plays out with, you know, a foreign, I don't know if they're unaudited or not, right? Company like Tether, who's buying the debt that the US has to cozy up to, or something like Circle that's on the forefront of getting, you know, I think on Circle's website, it says the most regulated or the most licensed crypto company, you know, in the world or whatever. And, you know, now you have all this
Picture of
chat.
some bondage sort of mega regulated. Regulate me harder, daddy.
Man in chains, yeah.
You have these companies now that are floating these ideas like, oh, Amazon's going to do their own stable coin, right? Walmart's going to do their own stable coin. But like, how does that work outside of like a gift card or like a credit? Like, what are you going to do with a Walmart stable coin? You know, I mean, it makes sense to have one or two large stable coins that are international, you know, crossing borders. But like, what am I going to send my Walmart stable coin, you know, if I'm doing remittance to like my family back home? Like, it doesn't make any sense, you know? And JP Morgan came
If they're
out.
going to shop at Walmart, it might work out. You have to think about, let's see, okay, so if there's a 1% that they can get on fees or grind or not using credit cards, whatever it is that they can spin up with Amazon coin, I think they could take that 1%, dump it back on their customers. So suddenly if you spend an Amazon coin, they'll give you 10% back. So now suddenly people are buying that thing. They're holding it the same way you do gift cards. You have gift cards in your wallet. Remember, the key to the gift card economy is that they never spend them. So
That's
you print
true.
$1 million in something, you get to say you have $1 million company, you give it to people, they never spend it, you get to keep the $1 million. It's great, right? The whole airline miles scam, the like layers on layers, they're hardly even airline companies anymore so much as they are mileage. In the same way, if you want to go buy a car, they don't want you to come in with your cash or your Bitcoin, you dirty bastards. They want to finance you. They want to get you strapped to the credit card machine so you can pay off your car every month in the same way. So
Well,
it's
once
gonna
upon a
change.
time, as well, you know, because Thomas, what was Roger Ver's company with the gift cards? Um,
Gift for a while, and then Purse is where I worked for a while. But
Purse,
the one
yeah.
that
So it
turned out
was,
is
I mean,
Fold.
that
Fold
was,
is on the stock market.
but that was,
Fold is buying more Bitcoin for their Bitcoin treasury. I used to know those Fold guys. They were like the little kids down the hall. Fold is huge now.
but
So
at that time, I think gift cards are a little bit different now with bit refill. It's not as it was, but at that time, it was kind of a shady, murky world because Amazon would pay employees with gift cards. So when they had work done by some Indian developer or something, they would pay them in gift cards. And then the Indian developer would be like, well, I need to just buy food. So then they would sell the gift cards at a loss in order to buy food. And that's why Purse were able to accumulate so many gift cards. And Roger Ver was able to
that was
accumulate
one story you heard. Another story could have been a casino that paid an Amazon gift credit. Other people say that it was all theft and credit card theft. So you just have to look out. The gift card world, like you say, Ben, is very shady. You put your money into a number, you put the number out there. You don't know if you're the first one getting the number or the second one. I remember on one of
But
those
this
old
is
exchanges,
perhaps
you
this is
buy a
perhaps why
$30
Amazon
card,
want.
it was 50. You have no idea.
Yeah, this is perhaps why Amazon want their own stablecoin, because it probably just makes sense for their gift card economy to have
It's
those
just
stablecoin.
it's another grift. It's another grift on top of the gift card grift. They're already running the gift card grift. Why not run the stable gift as
But
well? And
Before it gets
fundamentally,
before
will
it gets
be
buried
one.
in, sorry, before it gets
Sorry.
buried in the chat, Skeptic 33 had a really interesting point. So apparently the Genius bill only applies to US backed stablecoins. So to your point, Josh, on that monopoly that the USD has on stablecoins, that actually the lighter regulations when it comes to stablecoins only applies to US stablecoins and not those European stablecoins.
it did seem obvious to
clever
me
move.
when you guys were saying it that Tether versus Circle is just like Binance versus Coinbase, right? That same thing where one group gets the regulation, tries to use it against all their competitors. The other competitor maybe can be a pirate and sail the seven seas, get ahead that way. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah. No, and I feel it will probably be two players that build these stable coins because they're the geniuses, and the it'll be like Visa, MasterCard, Walmart and stuff will license it and rebrand it in their name. Paxos did this with their one. They basically launched Binance's smart stable coins, and then there's some regulator came in and went, it's not good enough, and shut them down, and then they had to claw back all of these coins. It's just, but yeah, I that's how it'll probably work out. The sad thing is we're trusting again in these centralized authorities. In a way, people, like I said, people get used to using public-private key cryptography in a way through some sort of front end, and maybe the front ends get better. But eventually, Walmart could just as easily have a database and maybe some sort of multi-sig database so it can't be hacked as easily or something, and then just keep a database of who's got what. I mean, this is how gift cards work. But yeah, the scams will be also massive because people can, that's the main scam is, stay on the line. Stay on a line while you go and buy your gift card. Sorry for a dodgy Indian accent there, but and I don't mean to be racist, but a lot of these telephone scams are from India or Pakistan. Yeah. Anyway.
What about the chargeback protections, right? Everyone wants to bag on it, but it's such a nice feature, right? I have the Amazon credit card. First off, you get 5% back with no annual fee, right? And then anytime that there's an issue, you go to rent a car, you use a credit card, there's protections in place. I mean, literally, American Express is the worst for a merchant. I mean, you can call American Express for just about anything that happens, and you have your money back like the next day. It's almost like no
That's why no one
question.
accepts it.
But what are they going to do for chargeback protection for stablecoins? When does it ever behoove me to use a stablecoin, to pay someone? And to your point about, Amazon rolls out their own card and they say you save 2% if you pay, with our Amazon shitcoin. Okay. I can't just put that Amazon shitcoin on my credit card because they're going to lose the 3% or whatever. So I have to like ACH, right, in my money to buy the shitcoin. And then they're counting on me keeping it there, right? So they're going to collect their interest on my money. I'm going to get nothing, right? So it isn't exactly like worked out, right? But I'm curious if all of a sudden they're going to just be able to just roll back any transaction for anyone, with one of these stable coins, as if it's like, oh, I ordered this thing from LN Bits and Ben didn't send it to me, and then he has to go and fight the dispute process. It's just not quite clear yet.
I think that
Totally.
the consumers just lose power. Most people don't know about that. They don't know that you can fight and reverse charges. I would say the Apple Card's great for that because you can text them. You can fill out a form, so you don't have to talk to someone, and you can complain all you want about your charges. I think they'll just say, whoops, that went away. And like you guys were saying earlier, just say, like they said back in the days, I just have a blockchain. You just say, oh, it's on the stable coin. We don't know what's going on. We made the stable coin. We can't control it. It's now all payments are one way, but you get that 10% off at the beginning. You just lose the ability to return things unless you buy, of course, the big Amazon and they will just cover it for you because they have an endless float. Whereas you, the small merchant, you just get, lose the features.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because and this is where it gets full Black Mirror, but it's not like Bitcoin. They are freezable. Tether and Circle can freeze because the ledger is within the smart contract. So when Tether, let's say there's a robbery. And this is the problem, right? This is why Satoshi didn't have any sort of way of reversing things, is because if you have the ability to reverse transaction, you will be compelled to use it. And so what could eventually happen is they start building out a social graph of anybody and wallet addresses that have scanned or been reported as like stealing, or hey, I paid this guy to repair my bathtub and it's not repaired, and you have to do something about it, Circle. And then it goes through a whole process, and then they freeze those coins, even though those coins have moved on from me because I've put it somewhere else. And smart people will be able to do things. They'll put it into like I don't know, DeFi, and then trade it out for something and borrow something else against it. Or do all sorts of stuff you can do. But because these things are freezable, they'll be compelled to freeze them, and then eventually people just won't use it because it's just not good money. If I'm accepting some coin, I don't know if it'll be frozen or not eventually. So there's a lot of stuff to be ironed out. But yeah, to Michael's point, I think they will be forced to freeze them.
It does seem like the kind of thing where you think it's great for crime, and then you're out there using it for crime, and suddenly they freeze your coin in the middle of the transaction. You're like, oh, I should have used Bitcoin.
It's full circle creeping up on everyone. Ironically, full circle, no pun intended. But that is the 1984 CBDC. That is everything that you feared, like as a Bitcoiner and talked about. Literally, they can do it, and it's just creeping up on your funds are frozen. Your funds expire next week if you don't, spend them. It's kind of crazy. I won't be lining up to hold a bunch of stable coins, that's for sure. I don't think any of us will.
These wallet accounts have been banned as of today. What I also think is interesting is it's a way for the United States to maintain its power. It's kind of a weak, soft power. It's not as good as being the world's, central power of money, but they could still be like the royal family in the UK. They could be like, all the stable coins are based on the USD. We could always print more USD and F up the stablecoin market. Therefore, there's a little back and forth, and the US still has some kind of that power that they could hold on. But we better keep moving. We got to move on.
Can I ask one question, please? Can I ask one question? Is it consistent through all the protocols for all stable coins, like what you're saying with any transaction can be rolled back, right? If it's Tether on Liquid or Tether on Tron, or USDC, I think they just launched on Ripple, or whatever, they have, like, is it no matter what, it can always be rolled back? Is there any censorship resistant stablecoin that exists?
Yeah. So the standard, we have one, but it all depends on the smart contract. Is the smart contract, does it have the ability to freeze the tokens? And then there's the thing is about bridging, right? Because there's so many L2s in Ethereum land, they embraced L2s a lot. So everyone launched different L2s that anchor back to Ethereum. And a lot of stable coins, because they're regulated, there's so much regulatory overhead to launch on a new chain, even though they're regulated on Ethereum, but they're not allowed to be on Arbitrum yet until they jump through a million hoops. So what people do is they just bridge their USDC over to Arbitrum by having a smart contract that says, okay, lock your USDC in here with the freezable function and issue a vanilla ERC20, which doesn't have the freezable function. So you get something like USDC.E, it's called, on Arbitrum, that is vanilla ERC20 that doesn't have they don't have any of the fee on transfer, they don't have any of the freezability functions.
But the ground underneath is unstable, right? They could freeze the thing that you're trading in. Then you could trade all these worthless tokens that aren't linked to the actual asset anymore, right?
Well, that's a systemic problem though, because you socialize that risk across everybody that's bridged, over. So, depending on how big that economy is, maybe that doesn't matter. But for now, but yeah, you start
They
to
could all get
destroy
together
that
and then
one-to-one.
reinflate the balloon. They could
Yeah,
reinflate the
because
balloon to save the value of their worthless currency. Yeah.
yeah, because the bridges work by locking up and issuing, and then when you send that issued back, it burns it and unlocks what's locked in there. So if you start destroying the thing that are locked in there or freezing them, then you start to fuck with the system, and that's a systemic problem that could really
It
destroy
sounds
it.
pretty
So
awful. It's all the problems of the old system brought back to you. And just I assume that every user reads the smart contract, like they read the EULA before they go into software. They're like, oh, I don't like this function. I'm not going to use Ethereum-C. I'm going to use Ethereum-D. That's the clean one.
Yeah.
It's a disaster. Well, we'll keep watching. It's going to keep developing with those fun stable coins. And I loved all the anti-CBDC thing. That was great. That worked out. Moving on to issue 2, the price of Bitcoin is down 0.62% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 103,810, a high of 106,580, and a low of 102,490. That's $1 for 963 Satoshis, pretty significantly on the right side of the 1,000 Satoshi barrier. Keeping an eye on the price as well at Cointelegraph, they say the Bitcoin price has slipped under 104,000 into triple witching options expiry. Bitcoin bulls attempt to reclaim the daily moving averages while volatility warnings come before a unique options expiry event for TradFi markets. Ben Ark has disappeared. Let's go to Josh Shigala. There's a lot of buzzwords in there. It sounds like some options are expiring. Some people made some bets and they're running out of time. And of course, it's always going to be bad for Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, it's not just options. It's like a whole triple witching, they call it. There's a whole bunch of things that expired yesterday. So I tweeted about it, said there'll be some volatility. Let's see. But actually what it means is that there's a whole bunch of liquidity that's freed up. So it'll pour back in. Don't worry about it.
They say here that $6.8 trillion worth of options on stock indexes, ETFs, equity index futures, and individual stocks are set to expire during today's trading session, as they call it. On the Kobayashi letter, they say, it's a big day. It's a big day. Ben Ark, what do you think about all this stock nonsense? It could drive down the price of Bitcoin.
Can you switch to a different, a technical hiccup for a moment there?
We can hear you.
Different microphone. Let's go to Muzz, Mike Jarmuz. What do you think about the market? And of course, the only thing everyone cares about Bitcoin, the price.
I actually never heard of a triple witching before. I saw a few people posting about it yesterday, and then it was cool to see that it was on your agenda. So did a little bit of a deep dive myself. I do like options. I think it's very fun. I think it's a way to generate income on something that you're holding that you have no plan of selling. And I guess it happens maybe 4 times a year. So it's not like, a blood moon or one of these astrological events that's once every, 318 years or so. I guess it happens 4 times a year, but I think that this was a record in terms of the size, right? So that's not just Bitcoin. It has really nothing to, Bitcoin is probably really a small part of this triple witching to my understanding. I mean, it's index futures and everything else. And I think that this used to be a bigger deal before they introduced weekly options, if anyone cares, or, that's fairly new, which options expire every week. So I don't think it's quite as much. But I did try to find some historical data on, after a triple witching event, if, everything's going to just NGU. And it really, that couldn't find anything. So, like historically, the days leading into the event, indexes lose, up to 1%, maybe 0.8% or 0.5% a day or two before. There can be a little bit of volatility a couple of days after these triple witching events because traders want to reopen those positions or get back into whatever. And remember, a lot of it's hedging. A lot of it is just, portfolio insurance, just in case, there's a nuke fired or who knows what's going to happen. So, I don't know. I mean, it looks like the price is up a little bit since market closed today. But I mean, if that's volatility, I mean, we're just completely desensitized at this point. It's like, oh man, the price fell all the way down to 102.5. Holy shit. I mean, that's like a joke at this point.
It's funny.
It
isn't
is funny, and it's funny, like you say, Muzz. We have these things that are planned every year. These options must expire, but this year we hear about it because this year it's going to affect Bitcoin. And it reminds me, if you look at a larger scale, you're like, why is there all this traffic in the morning? Well, everyone goes to work at 9 o'clock. That doesn't make any sense at all. Why is there all this traffic in the evening? Everyone gets off at 5 o'clock. That makes no sense, but we just keep doing it. So yeah, I guess we're going to have more triple witchings every year. But this is a very large triple witching. Ben, do you want to get in on all this stock market talk with the triple witchings and such?
I mean, I don't know too much about it, to be honest. But so what is it? This triple witching thing, suddenly we're like subject to it because Bitcoin's big enough now. I think the really interesting thing is like Mus was saying, is that just 100K just feels like a launch pad for Bitcoin. It doesn't feel like a top. It doesn't feel like we're, when it's hit a top before, it's felt like a top, whereas as this, it doesn't feel like it. It just feels like we've made a new base, and this is what we're going to work from now, and we're going to bounce maybe like low, like 102K or whatever, and then we're going to jump up to whatever. I think the news cycle for Bitcoin is just the more bullish than it ever has been, and then you have like the all-time Bitcoin reserves on exchanges at an all-time low, and then you have all these strategy type companies hooving up all the Bitcoin. Like, it's just supply and demand. Like, Bitcoin's going to go nuts. And if this witching thing is going to impact that as well, I mean, maybe that'll be the catalyst for a bit of volatility, which frosts the market up, and then the traders pile in, the retail investors pile in, and then that helps pump the price, and then everyone jumps on for the actual bull run, which is inevitably going to happen. But yeah, I mean, Bitcoin hasn't had more bullish signals than it currently has right now. It's quite incredible.
Ben, it sounds like the triple witching is just all these gamblers and all their bets expire at the same time. So if you had an options bet, a stock index bet, an ETF bet, or an equity index future individual stock bet, all these things are going to expire at the same time. So like we've seen in the past, when these gamblers have to cover, they have to sell something else, usually Bitcoin, driving the price of Bitcoin down. Then everyone freaks out, what's wrong with Bitcoin? And it starts going down. But meanwhile, those triangle guys with the big triangles, they say this is just another one of those uppy down things we have to do because it doesn't go straight up. And they're talking 130, 140. And of course, I mean, $1,000. Like Josh said, everyone talks in dollars. So I think about that, Ben. Up and down.
Up and down. It's going to go up. It's going to go down. One day we'll win.
Fortunately, we've already won because we have the source of all truth and knowledge right here, ready to tell you if the price is going up or down. But first, we're going to ask the panel, Mike Jarmusch, will the price of Bitcoin be higher or lower this time next week?
Higher.
Josh Segala, higher or lower?
Higher.
Ben,
Higher, baby.
Everyone's optimistic. You've got to break through. Is it all optimism, Ben?
It's just, you can't not be bullish. Like, higher. I mean, are we higher than we were last week? We had some like funny news, like but the higher.
They said in the chat that we were slightly higher and that the ball is always right. I believe them about the second part. Now, will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? Shaking the ball can cause bubbles. It says, very hard to read. It's really full of bubbles.
It's amazing. So much of the market relies upon this moment right now.
So much. Come on.
Everyone's got
Thomas.
the fingers. Everyone's got the fingers on.
I don't think it's readable.
Poloniex.
I think this is
It's because of the triple witching.
Yeah, it's
You
the triple,
see
it's the quadruple.
And it's summer solstice this weekend too, so it's a proper witchy
The ball
weekend.
is bearish. My sources say no. My
Ooh.
sources say no. And I think also some of the ball has evaporated here in Vegas. I know it's getting harder to read. But, you know, it is the source of all truth and knowledge. So my sources say no. The entire panel, bullish, everyone except the ball. You can check out all of the past predictions of the ball at worldcryptonetwork.com. We've got shorts, and more shorts at worldcryptonetwork.com and YouTube. Moving on to issue 3. Issue 3. Hackers reportedly wipe out $90 million from the largest Iranian cryptocurrency exchange. The hackers, allegedly with links to Israel, drained more than $90 million from NoBitX, Iran's largest cryptocurrency exchange, stealing Bitcoin, Ethereum, and even Dogecoin from the exchange. Ben Ark, what do you think about hackers taking the war digital to the Iranian exchange?
I mean, there's either Iran is now just is kind of fair game. So these hackers are like, well, if we're going to target someone, let's target, you know, then they can target an Iranian exchange, and it's just kind of fair game. Like they can probably just get away with it, or it could be state sponsored. So you know, some of the biggest viruses ever made, like Stuxnet, for example, which was one of the first major viruses, which managed to cross-pollinate across all these computers, was targeting the Iranian nuclear program. So cyber war, it's it makes sense that it would be state sponsored, but then there is also part of me which is just thinking there might just be some Bitcoiners who think that Iran is a fair target, and by hacking them, they're in some way being patriotic towards the cause of Israel or whatever else. So yeah, it's I'm always amazed when you have these little exchanges which have so much liquidity inside of them as well, you know, like 90 million. That's a lot of money. Incredible.
90 million that could have been invested in LN bits, but instead sat in
Exactly.
like accounts doing nothing. I agree, Ben. There's kind of it's a easy thing to hack. It's probably a smaller exchange. Like we've always said, Bitcoin is this valuable thing on your computer. It's more valuable than your documents or your photos because it's money. And so, of course, the Iranian exchange learned this the hard way. You also have to wonder if it was either, like Ben saying, state sponsored, or if hackers just did a calculation and said, well, they're going to be really busy dealing with bombs and things in the next few days. Maybe they won't even notice us stealing 90 million. Mike Jarmuz, what do you think about Iran taking this war digital with the Israeli hackers hacking the Iranian exchange?
Isn't it kind of amazing that they even have an exchange in Iran? Isn't that, even that alone, kind of just like shocking? You know,
I think if you send in your picture for the little account, you have to wear a hijab. Like the little account picture has to be in hijabs.
They didn't steal any stable coins. Okay. So the question is are stable coins theft resistant? Is that just like the quickest way to just end it all if you're a hacker from an exchange? You just leave the stable coins alone?
Yeah, like a die tag in the bank robbery. You don't
Pretty
leave
much.
a die
I mean,
tag.
I'm joking, but I'm serious. You know, I mean, what do you even do with them?
It is interesting and a little insulting that they won't even steal them. I mean, Dogecoin, you say it has value because they stole it. Must have value. Josh Shigala, what do you think about this hacking and how fun that we can bring back last week's story this week with a cryptocurrency involvement? Yes.
Well, never trust an exchange called Nobby that's got Nobby in its name. Nobby Tex. But
it sounds like no Bitcoin, right? The exchange called No Bitcoin turned out to have no Bitcoin at the end of the day. Well, surprise.
Yeah. Well, it's like empty Gox. It's just empty. Man, there's so much to this. This like the fact that the news media is saying that they're Israeli, that they're saying that they are apparently Israeli or something like that. Where was it? What was the exact word? Possible.
I think
links.
The funds were sent to an account, and the account has previously put negative messages about the Iranian National Guard on the blockchain. So either, like Ben's saying, it's Robinhood. they took the money, they gave it to presumably anti-Iranian forces, or like Ben's saying, it's a state-sponsored thing. They took the money, gave it to themselves. They stole it. Who knows what people are.
Fog of war.
Are, certainly. Yeah.
The thing is that I fear is that like the Iranian people are very different from the Iranian government and infrastructure. So yeah, it's I'm always like during these times when everyone's so on guard and we're really like talking about hardcore weaponry. It's important to cool the rhetoric a little bit if we want peace and just figure out how to get it sorted out. But I don't know. This whole thing is strange. Actually, Iran. The thing is about Bitcoin. It was always like in 2 weeks. That was like the thing for Bitcoin. Oh, Litecoin's going to be on Mt. Gox in 2 weeks. It was like that was the meme in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, TM. And it's been the same for Iran with the nukes. It's always been, it's 2 weeks away. So they were the original 2 weeks. I'm not saying that they don't. Maybe they've been enriching. Who knows? But I have so much doubt, especially around the whole WMD talks. It's just been reason after reason. The whole reason we invaded Iraq was WMDs, and that turned out to be nonsense. So I'm just, I guess, a little bit like there's more to play here. I'm just suspect of everything nowadays.
I just think, Josh, as well, we need to stress the difference between Iraq and Iran. It's not just one letter off. Iran is a huge country. They have a massive industrial base. They're much more industrialized, much more westernized in a lot of ways. I saw a video of a mall in Iran, and it was incredible, and it was wealthy, and it was rich, and it's a rich country. It's a big deal. And like Muzz was saying, it's a mixture, though. It's where sometimes, they'll be very religious and kind of, backwards perhaps. And other times they'll be very forward looking and very Western and futuristic and all these things. It's not good to go to war with them. It's not good for the US to get involved directly. Certainly Israel's had a variety of small wars with Egypt and other countries in the region. You want it to stay small. You don't want to see it transition into this US being overtly in it. But we're right on it. We're right on the edge there. So it's interesting to see these kind of hacks and things.
US has failed miserably in the Middle East, so it's like it really isn't within their interest. I mean, the US hasn't won a war since the Second World War, really. It's failed in every major conflict it's ever had. Yeah. So, and then particularly in the Middle East, and like you don't want to go to war with the Arab world, which is effectively what will happen if you start bombing the Iranians. Like you can get away with supporting bombing some Palestinians, but when it comes to bombing Iran, then you're gonna end up with a World War III right there. But on Israel,
Iraq was unpopular. Iraq was the in
the Arab world was a pariah.
It was okay to go after them, but to take on Iran is to direct links to Saudi Arabia, UAE, other incredibly powerful.
And if you look at Israel, I mean, there's a Naomi Klein. I think I mentioned it maybe on the show last week, but she had a really interesting point about she said that Israel was effectively a citadel. And it is really, when you look at it on a map, it's just surrounded by the Arab world, and it's just a tiny population of these guys in Israel, who, to the point on going back to the hacking story, Israel does have some very technically competent people, and I could imagine that the sort of nationalistic someone in Israel, they would think that maybe hacking this thing was an act of patriotism in some way, and they can also make some money from it as well. So could be a win-win. But yeah, Israel's got some very talented technical people, but it's a very technically advanced country, and it is something of a citadel because it just exists in this sea of Arab world, this little pocket. Which is why it's so important strategically, and why it has the backing, the support from the US and UK and Europe as well, because they want that foothold in the Arab world. But yeah, don't bomb the Iranians, please.
It's also clear with Iraq, it was a lot easier in the first Persian Gulf War to say they crossed the line, they went into Kuwait, they moved troops, they took over a country. With this, and then in the next Persian Gulf War, they presumably had an assassination attempt on George Bush. But with this, The Iranians have moved into the atoms. They've developed too many atoms. They've broken too much of the rules. It's a lot like a thinner line to say it's time to invade.
It's funny though, isn't it? Because you've always got North Korea who openly say we hate America, we're going to kill all the Americans, and we have nuclear weapons. But then they're just kind of left alone. It's like, all right, North Korea, you have no oil, so shut up,
There's a
whatever.
great meme that's going around, Ben. They're like, we're attacking Iran because they can't get nukes. And they're like, well, what about Russia? Like, you crazy? We can't attack them. They have nukes. It really
Yeah.
it changes when you're in the club. And that's also what we saw in the Ukraine situation where Ukraine gave up their nukes with a security promise. And we see how that's gone. If you have nukes, it seems the ultimate security promise. Go ahead, Josh. I cut you off.
No, no. Well, I think the fear is that it's like going to war with a cult that has no fear of death and almost like want it. And they're like, yeah, but we get, 12 virgins. So each guys, each, so, so it's, that's the fear. But hey, Pakistan has nukes apparently. So I've never understood that either. They've got nukes. Why isn't the world so up in arms about that? They have the same beliefs that you have 12 virgins at the end, and they're pretty close with India.
I think you're underselling it quite a lot, Josh. I think they get 72 virgins,
Oh,
which
do they?
might,
Oh,
depending on your beliefs, might be a much better deal. But it is funny, like you say, Pakistan, once they have nukes, they're in the club. We can't touch them. If they don't have them, though, there's still this back and forth and maybe a lot more destruction. As horrible as it might say, maybe every country should just get a nuke and then nobody could fight because we all have nukes. It's way better than having McDonald's, which previously they thought would lead to no fighting. But it turns out they just pull the McDonald's out and then have the fight. So it doesn't work.
Look, the videos of every Friday for their Friday prayers in Iran chanting death to America is insane. I don't know how long that's been going on. I actually met somebody who grew up there. They said that every morning in school, that was like something that they said, kind of like we did this Pledge of Allegiance. So I don't know why I didn't really pay much attention, didn't see things like that. But the videos are insane. They're not chanting death to UK. They're not chanting, it's insane. And it's crazy. It's crazy. It's not nice. Okay.
It's definitely
Are
not
there
nice.
any other countries that do that? I mean,
Well, it's certainly not the first time. Historically, in Rome, there was one senator who really didn't like Carthage, and he would end every one of his speeches with "Carthago delenda est," Carthage must be destroyed. And it wasn't very popular at first, but eventually the movement caught on, and eventually they attacked Carthage, burned the city down, filled in the port, salted the earth, everything they could do to make Carthage not exist. So yeah, it is scary, Muzz, when people are chanting for the end of your country and so forth. And especially, there's many different views on the United States, but some views are positive, that it is a positive force in democratizing the world, and other things. It's a complex issue. But yes, to take such
No, but I agree. It's scary as it's scary as it's and I think the way you get out of this is to be a positive force, and to continue because people eventually. I know many Iranian people throughout my life, and they've moved away from Iran. They're usually Christian Iranians that moved away, yeah, it's important to remember how much propaganda there is versus how much reality. Because it's very easy to think, wow, they're chanting every morning, "Death to America." I don't know, maybe they are, but it's kind of like the Orwell 1984. This is we are at war with Eurasia or Southeast Asia, and then they suddenly switch to someone else, and people sort of can see through it a little bit. I think, and if you look through the 70s and 60s and 70s, Iran was a very progressive in terms of their people without hijabs and within the Arab world, and then the Central Intelligence overthrew the leader there, and so there, yeah, it's such a complex web of mistrust and misinformation, disinformation, and so I just don't know what to think anymore. I really don't. But I turn on the X or anywhere, and I'm being told what to think, and this is what always makes me like, yeah, it's strange. And it is, I mean, it's with every subject really. And it's so hard to find the truth, especially now with AI generated video and stuff. You just don't know. You just don't know.
But if you really want to have some fun, Josh, go back to the 1920s or so and read about Kermit Roosevelt, who's legitimately a relative of TR, who was over there messing with Iran because the CIA messed it all up before they messed it all up again, and so forth. It's been a disaster there, but it is sad. I know there was a lot of, they call it, what do they say, waste, fraud, and abuse. But that's what we kind of gave up when we closed down U.S. aid, is this soft power where, yes, the guy gets up every morning and he does his 3 minutes hate, but then he goes and gets a scoop of rice from a bag that says provided by the U.S. government, and he puts on his glasses that he got with the free glasses program that the United States provide. And people are like, why are we giving free glasses to these jihadis and giving them a bag of rice? And it's because we can convert them this way. They're going to have a full belly and glasses they can see and books and whatever. This is a soft way of warfare. It's a soft way of changing people's minds. And I think we forget how valuable that be and how cheap it can be as well compared to weapons and war and destruction, so forth.
Well, I think you'll find that most of that was not happening. It was happening in like
Josh,
happening.
I think a lot of people had that bag of rice, and that bag of rice is gone, and the new bag is going to say brought to you by China. So
most of the rice was coming from UN.
Look for it.
But Thomas, the part that you left out of that's the most important thing when people say, the government, gave them their money. The government gave them our money. Okay, that's the problem. The government gave them, it's our money, and a lot of times.
Yeah, but I think we're getting a good deal. I think that like rice and glasses are cheap compared to bombers and actual death and so forth. It messes up the economy, all that death. Yeah.
I think Obama gave them a crap ton of money. I don't know what they did with it all.
Pallets of money.
Pallets.
Cash.
It is always the USD that's palletized. They never palletize Bitcoin. I can't figure it out.
Soon.
Oh, well, we'll have to keep talking about it. Certainly the issue will keep going, and we'll check in on it again next week. We hope for the best for both sides and so on and so forth. Less death. Let's move on to issue 4, a real powerhouse of a country. Norway eyes crypto mining ban amid local firms' heavy investments in Bitcoin. The Norwegian industry's surge in Bitcoin holdings sparks a contrast against the government mining crackdown. We've seen other countries adopt Bitcoin. Companies are adopting Bitcoin, but not Norway. They're stopping the mining. Ben, Ark, what do you think about Norway taking a stand against this Bitcoin wave that seems to be going on?
Yeah, I mean, like when it comes to mining, Norway makes a lot of sense. You've got to keep your miners cool. And then Norway has a lot of geothermal, renewable energy, which you can access. And this is the worry when it comes to, it's always a double-edged sword when you talk about mining, because then what becomes the incentive to run the power station? Yes, it can like bring some hydro plant back online, but then will it then serve the grid and benefit the people who live in that country? And then is it then consuming the cheaper form of power, which then has to be, in order to have like a steady base load for the grid, then they would have to resort to like dirtier ways of generating power. So it's interesting that Norway have taken a stand. I'm not entirely sure. I didn't actually read the article, so I'm sorry, Thomas, but I'm not entirely sure why they've taken the stand on it. But I could imagine there would be some concerns. But it's almost like the mining version of the strategy effect of having this thing exist. So we have the our material reality of fiat currency and power stations and whatever else, and then suddenly you just kind of chuck Bitcoin in the mix, and it's this like very valuable asset which generally goes up and creates huge gains for the people who accumulate it, and then that has insane impact on financial markets, and similarly has an insane impact on power generation. It's like, what are you going to use that power for? Are you going to light people's houses, or are you going to use it to mine Bitcoin? So yeah, I regret not reading the article to know more about it. Sorry, Thomas.
Well,
But I
and
can,
it's the same
interesting.
thing as the Middle East, though, Ben. They're like, we don't want to get the oil, even though we could sell the oil for a lot of money, and we could use that money to buy other electricity that we could use for our people. They're not seeing it all the way through. What I really want to get at here is I want to understand their reasons for doing this, and I think it's a new form of government called ironic government, where the government is performance art. Like Ben was saying, they have all these advantages to running servers there. You have all these companies like MicroStrategy all buying Bitcoin. Countries are having reserves and so forth. This is the option for Norway to make a Norwegian Bitcoin reserve and to power up some of these miners for the people. If they're worried about the industry eating all the profits, take it and give it to the people who use 10% for libraries. They have the best libraries in the world. But instead, they're doing this performance art government where they ignore the obvious way to use their serving mines to enrich their people. And they just kick the can down the road until they have to change their mind. And it's just a countdown now.
They were
how long before they change their mind.
The Norwegians were historically quite friendly because I remember covering a story once upon a time on the show on the Norwegian Sovereign Fund, which is one of the biggest funds in the world, from their oil reserves, and they had quite a large percentage of just bought Bitcoin, where they just bought Bitcoin with the proceeds. We spoke about it a while back. I'll have to look it up.
Maybe
but yeah, they've always been pretty Bitcoin friendly.
Government humor. I just saw the South Park. I think that the Norway was the troll country, and they had all that going on. So it's performance art, Ben. They have so much Bitcoin, they don't even want to mine it. They're just mocking us. They're mocking us. That's why it makes no sense, because it's a joke to them. Mike Jarmusch, what do you think about Norway and their brave stand against Bitcoin mining and money making in general?
Well, first off, someone needs to make them watch Dirty Coin. Okay. I think that if they just play Dirty Coin for Norway, maybe they will change their mind and realize all the benefits. You remember when China banned Bitcoin mining? Maybe the first time, the second time. Maybe it's banned right now. I don't know.
So many times. It's always banned.
And it used to matter, right? It used to affect the price, and everyone was talking about 51% of tax and this, that, and the other thing. And then all of a sudden, it mattered less. It mattered less. It's such a good movie, Dirty Coin. It mattered less, and it mattered less, and it mattered less every time that China banned mining. And this will do absolutely nothing except hurt the Norwegian people. It's so perfect for their climate. I mean, it couldn't be a more exciting thing to get into for a country. And, this is Bitcoin's anti-fragile. So that's it. Bitcoin does not care about Norway. I don't care about Norway. I went there once. It was terrible. I've been all over Europe. I hope to never go back to Norway. I did not have a good time. Okay. I actually paid $2 to use a urinal. I swiped my credit card, paid $2 to pee. In Norway, everything was a scam. An Uber ride that was 3 miles was $70, and a hamburger at McDonald's was $24. Okay, so I never want to go back to Norway again. And you know what? They don't deserve Bitcoin. They'll get it at the price that they deserve. But it's just really stupid. It'll go down as another government blunder, right? I mean, how much did Germany lose from their last big hoo-ha sell that they've done? I mean, pretty much most every government blunders Bitcoin all the way, right? Except El Salvador, who's buying. And now you have some new buyers emerging. But, and a few things, right? Like I think there was news that less than a $600 transaction in maybe Thailand or somewhere around there just happened this week. You have a few little positive news, but when it comes to mining, energy, FUD, and nonsense, I mean, they pretty much always mess it up. So I think this is just another case of that, and we'll see how long it lasts. Go to the GoFundMe page to bring Dirty Coin to Norway to play in Parliament, and we'll sponsor the popcorn, and we'll see what they say after it.
I agree, Muzz. It is so obvious and so tragic because it's not just like Germany where they had the funds and they could have held them, or other countries trying to hold the funds that are seized in criminal actions, which doesn't seem right to me at all. they could actually create new coins here, or they could just tax an industry where they create new coins. They could put a bunch of rules on mining. They could have all kinds of things, you have to build a park, whatever it is. They could put the rules on. They'd be in a strong position. Instead, they're giving it to their neighbors, to Sweden and Finland, presumably.
They could just keep people warm. How about that?
All the heaters in the country are blockchain Bitcoin miners tomorrow. Josh Shigala, what do you think about Norway?
I've said this quite often, specifically that Bitcoin is extremely green because it always looks for the cheap energy. The only place that's cheap energy, the only places that are cheap energy that are dirty are more socialist leaning countries and Norway, it's majority oil. It's rich because of its oil, and the oil is primarily owned by the state. And the problem with that is, if you look at anywhere that's banned Bitcoin, it's because people go, oh, wow, oil's cheap here. We could use it for a little bit. And then the state goes, oh, you're using all our oil. And actually getting rare numbers for it. And so you'll see that everywhere. And where it's not socialist, they'll look for renewable versions with private sector. Yes, Norway has a lot of renewables, specifically with hydro. But my feeling on this is that they're actually sucking on the teat of the very cheap oil that Norwegians get over there. And this is why they have heated roads, because they have a lot of oil. And that's not even a joke. So it's typical. And this is an important factor, is that wherever people go, Bitcoin's so dirty. Well, it's only dirty in the countries where they steal from everybody to subsidize an industry that they control, which is usually in more socialized countries or communist leaning countries. They will subsidize they will nationalize the energy grid and then sell it for cheap. And then get pissed off when people start using that cheap energy for private gain.
It does seem obvious, though, Josh, if you have lots of oil to diversify. I heard the Saudis are going huge into renewables, things like this. Why miss the next market? Why stay with only one thing? And going into Bitcoin, as well as renewables, as well as other energy generation possibilities, it just seems obvious. But
yeah, it's the largest sovereign fund, and it's 1.7 trillion they have in their coffers. So they're not short of a penny.
No.
They have bought Bitcoin. Bitcoin is on their portfolio, and apparently it's $27 per Norwegian. Worth of Bitcoin, which is held by the Norwegian sovereign fund.
I feel
so they probably just got too much money and they can't be bothered with all the
well, you charge everyone $2 a piss. That's a lot of money.
It adds up.
Buy Bitcoin.
Adds up.
You can almost see when you hear
have another drink of water.
Fund, like you could see Michael Saylor waiting on the outside, just like trying to get this fund to buy Bitcoin. Every single fund should be Bitcoin. As I can hear him from his speech still. But it's only a matter of time before we go to solar mining and Bitcoin pirates, as Peter Todd predicted in one of his speeches. Look it up. Moving on, we got a couple more issues. Over at The Block, a guy named James Hunt, I like the name, says Bitcoin's on-chain activity is a ghost town, but whales grow more dominant beneath the surface. Only large activity on Bitcoin now. And finally, Bank of America ranks Bitcoin with the printing press, steam engine, light bulb, and internet as once in a millennium technology. You can see it right here next to iPhone, social media, electric vehicles, CRISPR, and AI. Bitcoin. So let's go to Muzz. What do you think about Bitcoin's on-chain activity not being anything good? It's a ghost town, and Bank of America celebrating the wonderful invention that is Bitcoin.
Well, first off, is our low fees a bad thing? That's really the question. I actually just consolidated UTXOs last night. It cost me a whopping $3 at 1 sat per byte, and I was way overdue on that. But, is this a bad thing? Does that mean that Lightning's working? Does it mean that the ETFs have eaten up a lot of it? Does it mean that, Coinbase to Coinbase, Robinhood to Robinhood, Cash App to Cash App, these sort of things, it's not even hitting the chain? I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing that fees are low and Bitcoin is cheap to use. I'd rather be here than, the scaling wars and the spam and everything else that happened. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I think that it's great that Bank of America says that, but why doesn't Bank of America put their money where their mouth is and actually buy some Bitcoin or allow it to be the pristine collateral that it is, right? Can I get a mortgage with it? Will Bank of America lend on it? Will they do anything with it? So it's real nice, it's a real nice feat to put it on their little chart there. But they have every bit of the US government and, regulatory ability to do anything in the world more than put it on a chart and say, oh, this is cute, and then put three things after it. What was it? Electric vehicles, CRISPR, and then, quantum computing. So, I think it's nice, but it would be real nice if they actually did something with it that was more than that. But I really don't know. I saw some of those Glassnode stats about the large holders that are selling, and I just I don't think any of this is bad. If anything, I think Bitcoin is working exactly like it should. We don't have some sort of SegWit 2x nonsense right now and some debate about raising the block size limit. There's too many debates right now as it is that only the smart people like Ben Art can really talk about. But I personally like 1 sat per VByte till death. And I don't know. I couldn't be happier with it. I think it shows that Bitcoin's working.
It is pretty good, but like they say in the article, a lot of the activity has moved to the futures markets. So once again, Satoshi creates this beautiful thing. You can see exactly what's there, who has what Bitcoin, and everybody comes along and builds a thing on top of it. It says, come trade in my casino on top of Bitcoin and all that. And it sounds again like Bitcoin is just the classic Yogi Berra quote, that place is too crowded. Nobody goes there anymore. Josh Shigala, what do you think about Bitcoin? Nobody's using it, but it's still really popular. And Bank of America, or at least some intern who made the PowerPoint, suddenly thinks we're as good as the printing press.
Well, Bitcoin for a very long time has embraced the HODL meme. And so the smart money is holding and not moving it. And I think this is part of why stablecoins are becoming more interesting for people, because it's the currency side of it, whereas Bitcoin's not being used as a currency; it's being used as a store of value. And I worked for a long time in the gold industry, and that's what we noticed. People would buy gold and they would hold it. So it was really hard to run an exchange where you're making money from trading fees, because people buy it and then they hold it for like 5 years, 10 years, whatever. And so people generally, they hold Bitcoin. If they're smart, they'll put it away in a seed and they just won't touch it for a while. That's their kids' fund or their retirement fund. And hey, number go up technology, right? So it's working for them. And why I think what we built at the Standard was important was to have the ability to borrow against it without giving up your private keys, by locking it into smart contracts and borrowing against it. And so that's might be happening too, is that people are borrowing against it, the people are holding it. And yeah, I think that's my answer really, is that holding it doesn't mean it's not successful, because we all understand that's the value of Bitcoin, is that it is obviously it's programmable money, it is excellent currency, but it's also very, very excellent at just being a rare number that is a collectible because it was the very first blockchain. It was the very first cryptocurrency, and so it's collectible in people's eyes. Obviously, because the number keeps going up, and they hold it, and it's working.
Ben Ark, is this okay with you? No one's using Bitcoin because it's just a collectible now.
Yeah, it's real FUD. So it's like people point to the price of a transaction and how quiet the mempool is, and they'll just say, look, no one's using Bitcoin. And it's like, no, it's just working. Like Muzz said, if you look at like 2017 when we had crazy $50 fees or whatever, like Lightning didn't exist. Lightning went live in 2018. So we didn't have Lightning, we didn't have Liquid, we had none of these things which are used quite heavily, like for payments. So you had all those payments on chain. And then as well as that, like often if you wanted to buy shit coins, you would have to go through Bitcoin first. You'd have to buy some Bitcoin first, then you would have to go but get the shit coins with the Bitcoin. So there was all these reasons to use on-chain Bitcoin, which you no longer have. Like people who are paying for stuff with Bitcoin, they're not using on-chain, they're using Lightning. Like it works. Like the solution, we had a problem. The demand was too high, the transaction throughput was too low, and we needed a higher transactions per second. And now we have crazy high transactions per second with Lightning. It's just a case of making it easier and easier for people to access. But yeah, I mean, just if anyone who says that like people aren't using Bitcoin, just go hang out in Nosta for a bit and watch all these guys stop zapping each other. And then just go pay for anything like online, like go to a cafe and go buy a coffee, or go to a bar, buy a beer. You'll pay on Lightning. Go buy some server hosting, on Lunar Node. You're paying Lightning. Like it works. The solutions which are being built works, and that's why we have these lovely low on-chain fees. I'm kind of a fan. I personally, this is a nice excuse to reduce the block size and push the fees up, because I think people don't tackle scaling until it's a real issue, and on-chain transactions eventually will be quite expensive. So we do probably need to tackle scaling, and people get lured into this false sense of security when on-chain fees are very low, and I'm not sure that's entirely productive. Like for the sort of scaling solutions, like the last leap we had in scaling solutions, like when bolts and people actually finally started making use of Liquid, was when we had some high fees a year and a half ago. So I quite like high fees, but it is a symptom of just Bitcoin working, like the technology stack working, and the multi-layer protocol approach working as well. So rejoice, friends, it's working.
Well, there's something you never thought you'd see. The fees are too damn low. And like you're saying, it's probably a good time for Roger Ver to go ahead and unite and merge his UXTOs. He said that was a big deal back in the day. Now is a good time. But we're running out of time. Let's move on to predictions or story of the week. Michael Jarmusch, you're first with a prediction or a story of the week. Go ahead.
Story of the week. Story of the week might get me in a little bit of trouble, but so somewhere back in 2018, when I was just investing like a lunatic, I actually invested a couple of shekels into a company called Circle Internet, and had not really thought too much about it. And boy, that's going to be good. I can't do anything with it for probably about 6 more months or whenever that lockup is. And I have to unfortunately live with being a shitcoiner when that gets out there. But yeah, I fell backwards into a nice payday with this circle thing. So I have to be at least bullish on stable coins until I can dump this shit coin. And the day that I can dump it, I swear to God, I'm going to be out of this thing and pay off every bit of credit card debt that I have, and rejoice, and put the rest of it in Bitcoin for sure. But until then, I have to rah Circle Internet Company. And that's my story of the week, is sometimes when you angel invest, you can just get dumb lucky. And that was a long time ago in 2018 that I did that. And I would never do something like that today. But the illiquid nature of angel investing makes it so you basically can't do anything. Once you click the button and send in your money, you have to live with it. And thank God, because if they would have said like, "Hey, you can get 4 times your money," I would have probably just took it and said, "Get me out of this thing." But since I couldn't, um, I'm sitting kind of pretty. Um, and can I shill my thing now, Thomas?
Sure, go ahead.
My thing. Oh yeah. Okay. So Thunder Funder is a Reg CF crowdfunding portal. Yay. A pleb investment platform where you can invest in Bitcoin and open source companies. It is fairly new. We're just getting started. We don't accept Bitcoin yet, but we will very soon. Oh, there it is. Look at that. We have one live deal in a company called the Orange Pill app that is open till June 30th. So for a $250 minimum, you could get your feet wet angel investing in Bitcoin startups and open source companies. And look at that, coming soon and has been coming soon. They were supposed to be our first deal way back in July of last year. LN Bits, the beloved Ben Ark, the mad genius himself, will be on Thunder Funder very soon. So this is a way that you can, as an accredited or unaccredited investor, you don't have to meet any sort of requirements. You can be located anywhere, not just in the US. I think you have to be 18 years of age. You can turn some of your dirty fiat into Bitcoin and open source companies, equity. So not like Geyser, you're not like donating here, but you actually are an owner and get all of the upside of that whole thing. So this was our latest thing that we just started here. I am no longer the CEO, and I am working on Lightning Ventures, which is the parent company of this Thunder Funder thing. So we have a group. We are the world's largest Bitcoin-focused angel investing network. Wow, that's a mouthful. With over 3,000 people, and we invest in Bitcoin companies only. A little bit of a higher minimum, and you need to be an accredited investor, or you at least need to just click the button saying that you're an accredited investor, because everyone is an accredited investor if you click the right button. That is how that works there. So that's at ltng.ventures if you want to learn a little bit more about that. And that's it for me. That's what I'm working on. If you're going to be in Riga or Helsinki for BTC Hell, you should check out a Satoshi Nakamoto, which I'm putting together. Thomas stopped by our very weird Satoshi Nakamoto on Fremont Street in downtown, beautiful downtown Las Vegas for the Bitcoin conference. It was kind of a bizarro Nakamoto, but it worked, and it was great seeing him there. So if you can jam, you can get up in an instrument, play with the Satoshi Shredders, the Bitcoin All-Star Band, and have some fun with us. And that's pretty much all I have going on these days.
Well, it sounds pretty cool, Muzz, and it's a great way for people to invest in Bitcoin companies, like you're saying, angel funding. And we say all the time that Michael Saylor should give back and not just hold all his Bitcoin. Here's a chance for him to invest in some early companies. He could just come in and buy them all, just add them all to the shopping cart. Piece of cake from Michael Saylor. Josh Shigala, do you have a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
Last week a couple of weeks ago, we launched the key.fun. It was just a smart contract that I wanted to build, which is a game. And basically it's a last man standing Web3 game, and it's kind of fun. So I upgraded the troll box there so people can chat and leave little emojis and things like that. The jackpot is now up to $5,909. And basically what happens is you hold the key. There's one key and there's a jackpot, and every time someone buys the key off somebody else, the timer resets, and so now it's like up to 30 hours that you have to hold the key. If you hold the key right down at the bottom, then you go into the final, and the last two key holders basically go into a prisoner's dilemma where they have to decide whether to split or steal the jackpot. And if both players split, then they get 50% each of the jackpot. If one player decides to split and the other decides to steal, then the thief gets 100% of the jackpot. But if greed takes over and both steal, then the jackpot automatically trickles down on everybody that ever held the key as sort of an airdrop. So it's just a fun little exercise I wanted to build myself as a smart contract, and yeah, people are loving it. It's going up and up. The key price it goes up 0.4% every time, and every time you hold the key, you get a dividend shard, which because 10% of that purchasing price goes into the dividend pool, and you just keep pulling dividends as the price keeps going up. But yeah, it was a fun exercise in coding these smart contracts, and I just enjoyed it. And it's just a bit of fun. It's nothing serious. Please don't bet the farm on it. It's just a fun little thing. And oh, by the way, we also got the contracts audited now. So yeah, that was also a fun exercise getting that audited. But yeah, check out the key.fun. It's just it's on Arbitrum and running with our stablecoin USDS, which is backed by people locking up Bitcoin, Ethereum, ARB into smart contracts that they control and so they have the private keys.
That's cool, and you can check it out at thekey.fun. We also have Muzz's company at ltng.ventures if you want to invest and support the next generation of market-defining Bitcoin companies. Let's go to Ben Ark from LN Bits. Do you have a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead, Ben.
No, I mean, a couple of things, but first, Josh, like, what do people do? Do they steal, or what's the general outcome at the end of these games?
Well, it hasn't reached that yet, so we'll see. For this is the first time it's running, and one game could take months because every time someone buys the key, the clock resets, and they have to try and hold it without someone buying it for more than they bought it for, basically. So I think what will happen is when does
it trigger the end game, Josh? When does they buy back and forth? Then how does the end game start?
When the hodl timer reaches 0 in the smart contract. So right now it's at 23 hours. So and it's counting down. If it reaches 0, then the last 2 people holding the key go into that prisoner's dilemma. And it was really fun building that because that section of it there, they have to basically get a salt and hash their choice, which is like split or steal, with a random number, and then they send the hash up to the smart contract into the blockchain. And when both players commit their choice, then they go into a reveal where they send the salt up to the smart contract. The smart contract now hashes it. If those hashes match, then the smart contract decides what to do with those funds, which is those choices that I made. Yeah, but yeah, you basically you hold the key and it reaches 0. And the thinking was like, but why would people want to hold the key early on when it costs $1? I'll just buy it off you, and then now it costs $1.04. And they keep trading it because every time you get a type of key receipt, which is a share of the dividend pool, and so every time someone buys the key, most of that price of that key goes into the jackpot, so the jackpot gets higher, but 10% goes into the dividend pool. So people are buying the key early and stacking those shards because eventually, hey, the key could reach like, I don't know, 500, 10,000, could reach $1 million. I don't know. Let's see where it goes. And it's always 10% every time the key moves. 10% goes into the dividend pool. So
interesting. It'd be interesting how people react to the prisoner dilemma, because that was always years ago. That was one of the bugbears of John Nash's game theory, was that the rational actors in the game would tend to trust each other and tend to trust the other person's not going to screw, which was like completely irrational. So they weren't rational players, which was very frustrating for him. And then later on, he hated the game, the whole prisoner dilemma game theory, because the way it was applied to markets and whatever else in later life, because humans tend to trust each other. So it'd be some interesting data just on what the players actually end up doing,
Absolutely.
Like what Josh is saying, a lot of people are buying assuming that there'll be a steal, and then the key would trickle back down. Everyone would get a share of the money. So having the shares would work. If it's a share or a split steal and share, then the crowd gets nothing, right, Josh?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. But the crowd gets stuff all the way up too because of that dividend. Every time the key gets bought, 10% of that price gets dumped into the dividend pool. But then, yeah, at the prisoner's dilemma stage, there's also that chance of having that steal.
That's the
which is-
fascinating bit is what they will do when they're in that room together with the keys.
I know.
How will they
I'm
react?
I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to that too. There was one of these things
Yeah.
when I was thinking up this game. I was like, "There's prisoner's dilemmas." I've always loved it.
Fascinating, yeah.
And
Well,
we'll
that's what I want to see. I want to see that steal where it trickles back down and the two winners get nothing, and they're
Yeah.
just too greedy, and they doom themselves to that. So it's fascinating to see what will happen.
Just thinking about the prison dilemma was why I originally came up with the Diagon Alley stuff, was because the idea of just having someone buying something from somebody else and then removing the trust of not stealing, because obviously in the prison dilemma often you're putting the diamond somewhere and then you have to trust that they put the diamond somewhere and you're exchanging the cash.
Yeah.
So to try and remove the trust from a peer-to-peer transaction, you know, like for an item.
It's
so
such an important.
It's really important, yeah, and it's just good to have in your brain, like gnawing away at your brain, the whole prisoner dilemma, just as I don't know.
Yeah.
So story of the week for me is so we have the Bolts funding source, which is really cool, but people don't know how cool it is because it means you can fund your Allen-Bits instance with a liquid wallet essentially and have subatomic swaps, which happen when you do a transaction in and out of liquid. So you're accepting Lightning and then you're paying out to Lightning, but the actual balance which you hold is on liquid, which is very useful for some people who don't want to run a node. And I think it will be the go-to on our software as a service. So when you go to allenbits.com and spin up Allen-Bits, and the new system now we have, it's not implemented yet, but when you do that, you'll just automatically get this liquid wallet, and then you have a QR code, you scan it with Green Wallet, and then the money coming in and out of your Allen-Bits will be coming in and out of your liquid wallet. And then if you want to, you can then add a Lightning node as opposed to having it on liquid, because there is like a small fee attached to it, but it's really interesting. So I was working on that, and then of course Thunder Funder is very, very important actually as a project, because obviously Allen-Bits is going to be on Thunder Funder soon, which I'm really looking forward to. But like, I spent a lot of my time over the past year trying to convince VCs that Allen-Bits is a great project and has so many users that and the products we've built, like if you have a company in Bitcoin, then this thing has real potential. But then, so I'm trying to convince VCs of this, and some of them have never heard of Allen-Bits before, and I'm presenting it as a project. And then in the meantime, I've got thousands of Allen-Bits users who are like, we will happily invest in this project and in this company because we know how, because they know it, because they run the software, they use the software, and they know the potential of and just how useful this thing is. And many of the projects which are built on top of Bitcoin, and when people accept payments, they do it on top of Allen-Bits. It's like a go-to now, which is great. So Thunder Funder is really like one of the only mechanisms that your community of users actually have to just do a traditional investment in the company, which is developing the software, building the products to then help development, and then feedback, developer time into the project. So having Thunder Funder there is very important, and it's not an easy thing to set up as well. So it's the amount of time and effort which has gone into building Thunder Funder. I know from chatting to Muzz, like they've done a lot of work to get it to this point where normal folks just who are involved in a community and a project they love can actually invest in the company, which is working on that project. So it's a great platform, and I'm really looking forward to Allen-Bits going live on it in the next month or so.
I am too, Ben. When are you going to send me the last document that we need? We jerked you around for a year, 11 months now. Okay, we need one more document now.
I'll get on it, Muzz. I'll get on it. Yeah.
Muzz, is it a special purpose vehicle that then invests as a single investor, or is it thousands of people on your cap table?
No, we couldn't do that to somebody and put 1,000
Yeah,
names on the cap table. That'd be
yeah,
terrible.
yeah,
No,
good.
it works similar to an SPV. It's a crowd safe, is what it's called. But there's a nominee structure. It's fairly novel from 2012 when they came up with it. So it acts the same. It's one line item on the cap table,
Mhm.
but you just bundle up all those investors in there. But it's not an entity in the way that you create. In SPV. This is all boring stuff. But yeah, I'm excited to play this key game. I don't know what Arbitum is. I'll have to Google it. But
It's a layer two of Ethereum.
I'm excited to play the key game because it sounds like a lot of fun.
I'm excited to get my dog outside. Thank you. Thanks, Muzz. Yeah, yeah. It was fun to build, and we just it's fun to watch. Yeah.
And finally, my story of the week. I'm not ready with the story of the week. I want everyone to check out the Majorca Blockchain Days convention. Even though it says blockchain, it's very much a Bitcoin conference. Of course, any conference is what you bring to it. If you're into your coin, you're going to be a permanent ad for your coin wherever you go. No one can stop you. But check out Majorca Blockchain Days at majorcablockchaindays.com. It's a really small convention. It's just us and a couple other people hanging out by the pool, looking at the water, talking about Bitcoin, getting massages, eating sandwiches. That's it. Majorca Blockchain Days.
Is that coming up? That's coming up soon, isn't it? Look at
Coming
that.
up very soon, July 10th or 13th. So it's kind of your last chance. I'm going to probably be hopefully buying my flight ticket soon and getting my Airbnb sorted out and all that, hoping for another Europe trip and hoping to go by Majorca.
That was
It's
the
kind of
last time.
German
That was the last
Hawaii.
time me, you, and Josh were in Meet Space together, wasn't it? Was I think probably at Milk Blockchain Days.
That was
Yeah.
it. And I looked at the World Crypto Network. We haven't been doing too many videos lately, so I can see there's Ben, Victoria, and Vlad were on last year's live Bitcoin group. And the year before, it was Dan, Josh, and Ben, the full original lineup here on the Bitcoin group live. So I hope to do another live show and see him there. Was talking to Vlad on the Twitters today. Vlad's got a great new book out. It book Bitcoin the First Year. It looked like a graphic novel. He'd drawn a graphic novel. So I really look forward to that. Hope I can get a copy. And also wanted to just say, I don't know, I watched the Phoenician Scheme this week. I went to a theater and everything. It was kind of a mess. I don't know what you guys think. I'm a huge Wes Anderson fan. I went in not even knowing what the film was about, and then being kind of disappointed it didn't really come out well on the end. Maybe it's your favorite though. I like Moonrise Kingdom. But check it out. There's your movie reviews for the week.
That,
Phoenician
that's a
Scheme.
new Wes Anderson movie?
It is a brand new Wes Anderson movie. Words that excite me, usually beyond no end. But I kind of rank it at the bottom, really below Bottle Rocket and Darjeeling. I liked Asteroid City too. Like I was
Mine
on
was
board.
Rushmore. Rushmore was my
Strange
favorite.
Places.
I loved
I love
Rushmore.
Rushmore. Everybody, what's your favorite Wes Anderson? Go ahead,
Darjeeling
Muzz.
was great. How can you put that at the bottom? Even Bottle Rocket was great. There was one that he
They're
did
all
not
great.
long
They're
ago.
all
It was terrible. It was one of the more recent ones, like a year, like 2 years ago, maybe.
well, Asteroid City was. I liked it. It's big play inside a play. It has a lot of narrative. The Isle of Dogs is kind of unpopular, I think, because it's a stop motion animation. It's kind of less well known as opposed to like Royal Tenenbaums, Rushmore, Life Aquatic, the real core. Josh
I'm
Segala,
watching
Wes
that
Anderson.
tonight. I'm watching that tonight, and I'll let you know.
Let me know, Josh. What do you think?
Nice. Yeah, I like Life Aquatic and the hotel one,
Budapest. Hotel
Budapest,
Budapest.
Grand Budapest Hotel. Yes,
Grand Budapest. Yeah,
I like that one too, but it's just so sad at the end. I want to watch it again, but my mind would just tell me how sad it is. So
Folks in the chat are thanking you for joining us, Michael, and they said you've been a very good guest. So thank you very much for joining us.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you've been great.
That means a lot.
very nice. And check out what Mike's working on there with the Lightning Ventures. It's lntg.ventures. So check it
Yeah.
out.
And Thunder
Really
Thunder
cool
is
stuff.
really
Thunder.
the one you want to have a look at. Is Thunder Thunder
Yeah.
for the audience
Thunder
members.
Thunder.
It's great.
I'm definitely going to check that out. Yeah.
A lot of work went
Oh.
into that bad boy.
And thanks again to everybody for joining us. Give us a comment down below, say hello in the chat. And until next time, bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.